My parents didn't miss my Harvard graduation. They chose my sister's spa day. The text came at 6:14 a.m. glowing screen, mom's typos. Can't make it today. Brooke needs us for her spa appointment. So proud of you though. 3 lines for 4 years of Harvard. Below it, a Venmo receipt. $890 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. By 10 a.m., I placed their ceremony programs on 2 empty seats, Harvard Yard, front row, chairs 12 and 13, crimson fabric under June sun. Around me, 2,100 families, embraced graduates. In front of me, 2 empty chairs where mine should have been. I didn't post anything. My roommate's father did those empty seats, those programs, that morning text screenshot, 2.3 million views by evening. Dad's law firm saw it. Mom's garden club. Then both their phones started ringing. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in April that felt like destiny. I was halfway through my shift at the campus library, the graveyard slot, midnight to 8, because it paid an extra $2 per hour, and I needed every cent. My eyes burned from staring at checkout screens, and my lower back ached from the cheap desk chair. But none of that mattered the moment I saw the subject line on my phone. Your Harvard College admission decision. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I'd applied to Harvard the way you'd buy a lottery ticket, knowing the odds, preparing for disappointment, but unable to stop that small, stupid spark of hope. My guidance counselor at Lincoln High had been supportive but realistic. Your grades are exceptional, Claire, she'd said, reviewing my 3.97 gigapascals and AP scores. But Harvard accepts less than 4% of applicants, have strong backups. I had backups. State school was basically guaranteed with my scholarship applications. But Harvard had been the dream whispered in the dark corners of my childhood, the name I'd attached to every late-night study session, and every weekend I'd spent with textbooks instead of friends. The email was short. Dear Claire Hastings, congratulations. I read it 3 times before my brain processed the words. Accepted. Full ride scholarship. $85,000 per year covering tuition, room, board, books, everything. The Crimson Scholars Program for exceptional students from low-income backgrounds who demonstrated not just academic excellence but resilience. Resilience. They had no idea. I should have waited, should have driven home to tell them in person, seen their faces when I shared the news. But it was 6:52 a.m. and I was alone in a fluorescent-lit library basement, and I needed to hear their voices tell me they were proud. Mom answered on the 4th ring. Claire? It's so early. Is everything okay? Her tone wasn't worried, just annoyed. I heard the coffee maker gurgling in the background, the morning news playing on their kitchen TV. I got in. My voice cracked. Harvard. I got into Harvard. Full scholarship, Mom. Full ride. Silence. Then, oh, that's wonderful, honey. Wonderful. The word landed like a stone in still water, technically correct, emotionally empty. No scream of joy. No calling for Dad to pick up the other line. Just wonderful, in the same tone she'd used when I'd made honor roll in 10th grade or gotten my driver's license. Is Dad there? I asked, trying to keep the hope alive. He's getting ready for work. Robert. Her voice went distant. Claire got into some college in Boston. Some college. Harvard, Mom. Harvard University. Right. Yes. Harvard. I heard muffled conversation. Dad's voice, too low to make out words. Then Mom was back. He says congratulations. He's very proud. We both are. Listen, sweetheart. I have to Brooke. Perfect timing. My sister's voice joined the background noise. Bright and loud and impossible to ignore. Is that Claire? Oh my God, guess what? Brooke didn't wait for an answer. The spa called, and I got approved for the premium membership. The one with the infrared sauna and the salt therapy room. Mom, you have to see the brochure. That's amazing, honey. Mom's voice transformed. The flatness vanished, replaced by genuine excitement I recognized immediately because I'd been chasing it my entire life. Robert, come here. Brooke got the spa membership. Dad's response was audible this time. Enthusiastic. Warm. I stood in the library basement, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my family celebrate my sister's spa membership, while my Harvard acceptance gathered dust in the conversation. Mom? I tried. Sorry, Claire, what were you saying? Never mind. My throat felt tight. I have to get back to work. Okay, congratulations again on your college news. We'll talk soon. The call ended. I stared at my phone screen at the Harvard acceptance email still open, at the timestamp showing 6:52 a.m., at my own reflection in the black mirror of the locked screen. 22 years old. Ivy League acceptance. Full scholarship worth $340,000 over 4 years. And my parents had given me 45 seconds before moving on to Brooke's spa news. I should have seen it then. Should have recognized the pattern that had been writing itself across my entire childhood. But I was 22 and still stupid enough to believe that achievement could earn love, that if I just accomplished enough, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at her. So I went back to work, checked out books for bleary-eyed students, restocked shelves, cleaned the break room. And when my shift ended at 8, I drove to the apartment I shared with 3 roommates, climbed into bed, and pulled up my phone. The Harvard acceptance was real. The text notification below it was also real. Mom had Venmo'd Brooke $2,400 with the note for your spa membership. So proud of you, baby girl. I closed my eyes. The math was simple, the kind I'd been doing my entire life. My Harvard acceptance, 4 years of work, hundreds of scholarship applications, a 3.97 gigapascals maintained while working 3 part-time jobs, had earned me 45 seconds of distracted congratulations. Brooke's spa membership had earned her $2,400 and genuine celebration before 7 a.m. I didn't cry. I was too tired for tears, and I'd learned years ago that crying didn't change the equation. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching Harvard's move-in dates, course catalogs, housing options. If they weren't going to celebrate with me, I'd celebrate alone. I'd been doing it my whole life anyway. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known that Tuesday morning in April, was that the spa membership wasn't an isolated expense. It was the first thread I'd pulled on a tapestry of financial choices that would unravel everything I thought I understood about my family. But that discovery was still weeks away. For now, I had an acceptance letter to frame and a future to build, with or without their pride. Preferably without their $2,400, since that was apparently reserved for infrared saunas and salt therapy rooms. I fell asleep with my laptop open to Harvard's homepage, the crimson logo burning into my screen. The dream felt closer than it ever had. The nightmare hadn't started yet. My family wasn't obviously dysfunctional. We didn't scream or throw things. There was no abuse in the traditional sense, no violence or neglect that would have triggered intervention. To the outside world, Robert and Linda Hastings were upstanding citizens with 2 daughters, Brooke, 25 and charming, and Claire, 22 and fine. The problem was subtle. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, administered with smiles. I learned I was second place when I was 8 years old. 4th grade science fair. I'd spent 3 weeks building a model of the solar system that actually rotated. Powered by a motor I'd salvaged from an old toy and wired myself after watching YouTube tutorials. It wasn't perfect, Neptune kept falling off, but I'd figured out the mechanics alone and I was proud. The night before the fair, I showed it to Mom and Dad in the garage. "That's nice, honey," Mom said, phone in hand. She was texting someone. Barely looked up. Dad gave it more attention. Spun Saturn with 1 finger. "Good job, Claire. Very creative." Creative. Not brilliant, not amazing. Creative, like I'd glued macaroni to a paper plate. Then Brooke appeared in the doorway, 17 and preparing for prom, holding up 2 dresses. Which one makes me look less washed out? Both parents turned immediately. "The blue one." Mom rushed over. "Definitely the blue." "Robert, doesn't she look stunning?" Dad nodded. "Gorgeous. Here, let me get my credit card. You need shoes to match, right?" They left the garage, all three of them, discussing dress shoes and makeup while my solar system sat on the workbench, Neptune still wobbling on its wire. I won second place at the science fair, brought the ribbon home, stuck it on the fridge. 3 weeks later, I noticed it in the trash. Mom had taken it down to make room for a photo of Brooke at prom. That was the pattern. Not cruelty, indifference, dressed up as support. By 14, I'd stopped expecting equity and started tracking disparity instead. The way you document symptoms of a disease you couldn't name. Freshman year homecoming. Mom took Brooke dress shopping in Chicago. 6-hour round trip, $600 budget. They came home with bags and stories and inside jokes. When my turn came sophomore year, Mom handed me $40 and directions to Target. Find something cute, she'd said. I'm sure they have plenty of options. I wore a $38 clearance dress that didn't fit right and shoes I already owned. Brooke's homecoming photos were framed on the mantle. Mine never made it out of my phone. Junior year. I needed a graphing calculator for AP Calculus, $120 on Amazon. Dad said money was tight, suggested I save up from my part-time job at the grocery store. I'd been working there since I turned 16, bagging groceries, mopping floors, collecting shopping carts in the rain, and most of my paychecks went to gas money and the phone bill they made me split. I saved for 2 months. Bought the calculator used on eBay for $75. That same month, Brooke mentioned wanting to visit colleges out of state. Within a week, they'd planned a trip. Flights to California, hotel rooms, campus tours at UCLA and USC, fancy dinners. I saw the credit card statement later, $3,200 for a week-long trip. Brooke didn't even end up applying to those schools. She went to community college for a year, and then dropped out to find herself, which apparently required a lot of brunch and very little employment. I didn't complain. Complaining made you ungrateful, and ungrateful children didn't deserve what little attention they got. So I smiled and said, "Have fun," when they left for California, and I worked extra shifts at the grocery store to cover my AP exam fees because asking for help felt like begging for scraps. Senior year was when I realized the disparity wasn't accidental, it was architectural. College application season. I applied to 15 schools, spent weeks on essays, sent out dozens of scholarship applications. The process was expensive. Application fees, test score reports, CSS profiles. I'd saved $400 from my grocery store job. It wasn't enough. I asked Dad for help one Saturday morning in October. He was in his home office, reading the newspaper. "Dad, I need to submit 5 more college applications, but the fees are going to be about $380 total. I have most of it saved, but I'm short about $100. Could you—" Claire. He didn't look up from the sports section. "You're 18 years old. You have a job. Surely you can budget better." Budget better. I was working 25 hours a week while taking 4 AP classes and maintaining a 3.97 gigapascals. I budgeted every dollar like my life depended on it, because it did. I just thought, life isn't going to hand you money whenever you need it. He interrupted. This is a good lesson in financial responsibility. I left his office, didn't argue, picked up 2 extra shifts and submitted 4 applications instead of 5. That same weekend, Brooke mentioned she wanted to take a pottery class at the local community center. For fun, she said, just to try something new. Monday morning, I saw the Venmo notification. Dad had sent her $350 with the note, "For your creative journey." Her creative journey cost $85. I saw the community center brochure on the counter. The rest, I assume, went to supplies or brunch or whatever Brooke decided she needed. My college applications, my actual future weren't worth $100. Her pottery hobby was worth $350. I stopped asking for money after that. By the time I got into Harvard, I'd become an expert in self-sufficiency born from necessity. I'd worked 3 jobs throughout college: campus library, graveyard shift, $14, hour, weekend catering for events, $17, hour plus tips, and freelance tutoring, $25, hour when I could find clients. I lived in the cheapest housing option, ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, walked 40 minutes to save bus fare. My student loan balance sat at $71,000 by graduation. The portion scholarships and grants hadn't covered. Textbooks, meal plans, lab fees, housing deposits. All of it borrowed, all of it mine to repay. I never asked my parents for a cent during those 4 years. Partly because I'd learned the answer would be no. Partly because I didn't want to hear Dad's lecture about financial responsibility, while Brooke got Venmo notifications for fun money and self-care Saturdays. The week I got my Harvard acceptance, Brooke announced she was starting a spa business. Not opening a spa that would require capital and business acumen. She was going to be a spa influencer, posting about treatments and wellness routines and jade rollers. Mom and Dad thought it was brilliant. Within a month, they'd bought her the premium spa membership, $2,400, a ring light for videos, $340, and a new iPhone for better content quality, $1,200. I saw the receipts in the family group chat, each purchase celebrated with emojis and exclamation points. I was eating 99-cent ramen in a library basement at 2 a.m., studying for finals, watching my phone light up with notifications about my sister's influencer career. The math was always there, brutal and clear. I just hadn't added it all up yet. I didn't know that the spa membership was the tip of an iceberg. That beneath the surface of tight money and budget better sat 18 months of transactions that would make me physically sick when I finally saw them. But graduation was coming. 6 weeks away, then 5, then 4. I ordered 2 tickets for the ceremony in February, front row, chairs 12 and 13, $40 each because even Harvard graduation seats cost money. I mailed the invitation in a crimson envelope with a handwritten note inside. I hope you'll be there. It would mean everything. Mom texted back. Wouldn't miss it. I believed her. God, I believed her. The text came at 6:14 a.m. on graduation day. I was already awake, had been since 4:30, too anxious to sleep. My cap and gown hung on the back of my closet door, still wrapped in the plastic garment bag. Crimson fabric with the Harvard seal embroidered in gold thread. I'd tried it on 3 times the night before, standing in front of my roommate Priya's full-length mirror, trying to reconcile the girl in the reflection with the girl who used to bag groceries for $8.50 an hour. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Mom's name. My heart jumped. Maybe they were already on the road, checking in early, excited. I opened the message. Can't make it today. Brooke needs us for her spa appointment. So proud of you, though. 12 words. I read them 4 times before my brain would process the meaning. Then I scrolled down. Below the text, a Venmo receipt screenshot. Probably attached by accident. The way Mom sometimes pocket-sent photos. Or maybe not an accident, maybe she'd sent it deliberately. Proof of where they'd be spending their day instead of at my graduation. $890 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. Transaction time. 11:47 p.m. The previous night. Description. Brooke's graduation glow package. I sat in bed, phone screen glowing in the dark room, staring at those 12 words and that receipt. Can't make it today. Brooke needs us. $890. My hands started shaking, not the trembling kind, the violent kind, where your body stops taking instructions from your brain and just does what it needs to do. The phone slipped from my fingers onto the blanket. Priya stirred in the bed across from mine. Claire? You okay? I couldn't answer. My throat had sealed shut. She sat up, squinting in the dim light. Then she saw my face. What happened? I handed her the phone. She read the message, scrolled down to the Venmo receipt. Her expression went from confused to horrified in the space of 3 seconds. Are you fucking kidding me? She wasn't yelling. Priya never yelled, but her voice had an edge that could cut glass. They're not coming? To your Harvard graduation? For a spa appointment? She needs them, I whispered. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. Brooke needs them. Claire. It's fine. I took the phone back. My hands were still shaking. It's fine. People graduate without their parents all the time. It's fine. It's not fine. I have to get ready. I stood up, moved on autopilot toward the bathroom. Priya called after me, but I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the edge of the bathtub with my phone in my lap. I opened the text again. Read it again. Looked at the Venmo receipt again. $890 for a spa day. The graduation glow package, which apparently included a deep tissue massage, facial, body wrap, scalp treatment, and champagne. My graduation tickets had cost $40 each, $80 total. They'd chosen her $890 spa package over my $80 ceremony seats. The math was clear. It had always been clear. I should have cried, should have thrown the phone, screamed, called them and demanded an explanation, but I didn't. I just sat there on the bathtub edge, numb and hollow, while Priya knocked on the door asking if I needed anything. I'm fine, I called back. Just getting ready. I wasn't fine. But I got ready anyway. By 9:30 a.m., I stood in Harvard Yard wearing my crimson gown and cap, holding 2 ceremony programs in my hands. The programs were nice heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, the Harvard seal in gold. They'd been sitting in my tote bag since I picked them up from the registrar's office a week earlier. I'd imagined handing them to Mom and Dad when they arrived, seeing their faces when they realized their daughter's name was printed inside under cum laude honors. Now I walked through the crowd of graduates and families, past the rows of white folding chairs arranged in perfect lines, until I found chairs 12 and 13 inches the front row. Empty. Of course they were empty. I placed one program on each seat. Careful, precise, the way you'd place flowers on a grave. The chairs were metal with crimson cushions, standard issue for the ceremony. The fabric was warm from the June sun. Around me, 2,100 families were arriving, parents with cameras, siblings in sundresses, grandparents moving slowly and carefully. Everywhere I looked, people were hugging, crying, taking photos. I stood in front of chairs 12 and 13 and felt the space where my family should have been, like a missing tooth you can't stop tonguing. Claire? Priya appeared beside me, already in her gown. Her parents were somewhere behind us. I'd met them during move-in freshman year, warm and loud and overwhelming in the best way. You okay? Yeah, I wasn't. Just saving their seats. She looked at the empty chairs, at the programs placed carefully on the crimson cushions. Her jaw tightened. Don't, I said. Please, I just need to get through today. She nodded, squeezed my hand. We're sitting right behind you, okay? Right behind you. I managed a smile. Okay. The ceremony started at 10 a.m. I sat between 2 classmates I barely knew, David, something from my economics class, and Sarah, something from the library. Around me, the stadium hummed with excitement, and camera flashes and parents crying proud tears. In front of me, chairs 12 and 13 sat empty. The sun was bright. The crimson cushions gleamed. I'd imagined this moment for 4 years, walking across that stage, hearing my name called, seeing my parents in the front row standing and clapping, and finally looking proud. Instead, I stared at 2 programs sitting on empty chairs and tried to remember how to breathe. The dean began calling names alphabetically. We stood in groups, filed toward the stage. I waited for the H's, heart pounding against my ribs. Claire Hastings. I walked. 1 foot in front of the other. Up the stairs, across the stage. Someone handed me a diploma cover. The real one would be mailed later. I shook hands with the dean, smiled for the photographer, moved my tassel from right to left. It took maybe 30 seconds. I looked out at the audience. At the empty front row seats. At the programs I'd placed there that would sit untouched for the entire ceremony. My knees buckled. Just for a second, a half step where my body forgot how to be solid. Sarah from the library caught my elbow, steadied me. You good? Yeah. I wasn't. Thanks. I walked off the stage, returned to my seat, sat down and stared straight ahead while the ceremony continued around me. Behind me, I heard Priya's mother whisper to her husband in Hindi. I didn't speak the language, but I recognized my name, recognized the tone angry, protective. The ceremony ended at 11:45 a.m. Families swarmed the yard, graduates posed for photos, parents cried, siblings complained about the heat. I stood alone near my row, watching other people celebrate. Priya found me first, her whole family in tow. Her mother, short, fierce, wearing a bright blue sari, pulled me into a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. "We are so proud of you," she said in accented English. So proud. I started crying. Not quiet tears, ugly, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest where I'd been holding everything for 4 years, for 18 years, for my entire life. Priya's mother held me tighter. Her father patted my back awkwardly. Her younger brother looked uncomfortable but handed me a tissue. "Come," Priya's mother said. "Photos. You take photos with us." "I'm not. You are family now." She gripped my shoulders. "You think I let you stand here alone? No. You are our daughter today. Come." So I took photos with Priya's family, stood between her parents, laughing through tears while her brother complained about the sun, and her father made bad jokes, and her mother kept adjusting my cap and calling me beta. Other graduates noticed. I felt their eyes, heard the whispers. "Who's she with? Those aren't her parents. Where's her family?" Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Priya's mother had claimed me as family, and I was too grateful to care about blood relations or pity stares. At 1 p.m., I walked back to chairs 12 and 13 one last time. The programs were still there, untouched. I picked them up, folded them carefully, slipped them into my tote bag next to my diploma cover, and the crimson tassel I'd moved from right to left. That's when I heard a voice behind me, unfamiliar. "Saw your folks at Serenity Springs this morning." I turned. A middle-aged woman in an expensive dress, someone's mother probably. She smiled at me, oblivious. "Big spenders lately, huh? That graduation glow package isn't cheap. My daughter wanted it, but I said, absolutely not. $890 for a massage?" She laughed. "Anyway, congratulations, sweetheart." She walked away. I stood there holding 2 programs and processing what she'd said. Big spenders lately. $890. Big spenders. Lately. My parents had told me for 4 years that money was tight, that they couldn't help with textbooks, meal plans, moving expenses, that I needed to budget better and be financially responsible. Big spenders lately. I pulled out my phone. Opened my banking app specifically, the shared family account I'd been added to freshman year for emergencies. I hadn't looked at it in months. Never needed to. It was just sitting there, dormant, in case of crisis. I scrolled through recent transactions, and there it was. Serenity Springs Day Spa. Over and over and over. $890 this morning. $3,200 2 weeks ago. $4,500 in April. $2,400 in March. I kept scrolling. My hands were shaking again. 18 months of transactions. All to the same place. All for Brooke. All while I was working 3 jobs and eating ramen and taking out student loans because money was tight. I stood in Harvard Yard, diploma in hand, staring at my phone screen. Around me, families celebrated. In front of me, the empty chairs seemed to multiply. And in my hand, the evidence of 18 months of lies loaded one transaction at a time. Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake when the temperature shifts. Still solid enough to stand on, but spiderwebbing beneath the surface, waiting for the right pressure to shatter completely. I looked at those empty chairs one more time. Then I put my phone in my pocket, picked up my tote bag, and walked toward Priya's family. Behind me, the chairs sat empty in the sun. 2 programs missing. 2 parents absent. And $890 worth of spa treatments that had been more important than watching their daughter graduate from Harvard University. The cracks spread a little wider. By midnight, it would become an earthquake. But I didn't know that yet. For now, I just walked away from the empty chairs and tried to figure out how to survive the rest of the day. 3 days after graduation, I asked my parents for $200. I know how that sounds. 22 years old, Harvard degree, still asking parents for money. But I needed help with moving expenses, security deposit for my summer sublet in Boston, first month's rent, the U-Haul to transport what little I owned from campus housing to a studio apartment in Allston. I'd done the math carefully. Had $1,400 saved from my tutoring jobs. Needed $1,850 total. $200 would bridge the gap until my summer internship started and paychecks began rolling in. I called Dad that Tuesday evening. He answered on the second ring. "Claire, how's the graduate?" "Good." "Hey, I'm moving into my summer place this weekend, and I'm a little short on the deposit. Could you possibly lend me $200? I'll pay you back by July when—" "Claire." His tone shifted immediately, warm to businesslike in half a second. "We've talked about this. You're an adult now. You have a Harvard degree. Money doesn't grow on trees." Money doesn't grow on trees. I'd heard that phrase my entire childhood, usually right before watching them drop $300 on dinner with Brooke, or $500 on her emergency car repair that turned out to be cosmetic detailing. "I know, Dad. That's why I'm asking to borrow it, not—" "We're stretched thin right now," he interrupted. "With the economy and everything. I'm sure you can figure something out. You're resourceful." Resourceful. Translation. Not our problem. "Okay," I said. "Thanks anyway." I hung up before he could deliver his usual lecture about financial responsibility and bootstrap economics. Stretched thin. The words echoed in my head while I lay in bed that night, staring at my phone. Stretched thin. But 3 days ago, that woman at graduation had said something different. What was it? I replayed the conversation in my memory. "Saw your folks at Serenity Springs this morning. Big spenders lately, huh?" Big spenders. Not, "they treat themselves occasionally," or "they splurge sometimes." Big spenders, lately, as in recent pattern, not isolated incident. I sat up, grabbed my laptop from the floor, opened social media, something I rarely did, because watching Brooke's curated life made me want to throw my phone into traffic. But I needed to see something. Her Instagram loaded. Public profile, of course. She wanted maximum visibility for her spa influencer brand. I scrolled. The photos went back months. Brooke at Serenity Springs, face mask on, cucumber slices over her eyes. Brooke in a fluffy white robe, champagne glass raised. Brooke in the infrared sauna, skin glowing. Brooke getting a massage, hot stones arranged on her spine. Every photo tagged the location. Every caption thanked Mom and Dad for supporting my wellness journey. I counted. 47 posts in the last 6 months. 47 visits to a spa that charged, I pulled up their website, a minimum of $150 for basic services. Basic services. The graduation glow package I'd seen on the Venmo receipt cost $890. That wasn't basic, that was premium. I did quick math in my head. If she'd gone 47 times in 6 months, even at the basic rate, that was over $7,000. $7,000 on spa visits. While Dad told me they were stretched thin and couldn't lend me $200. My stomach turned. I clicked on one of Brooke's photos from 2 weeks ago. The caption read, "Grateful for another amazing day at Serenity Springs Spa. The aromatherapy massage and hydrofacial have me glowing. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for always believing in self-care." The photo had been liked by both my parents. Mom had commented, "You deserve it, sweetheart." I closed the laptop. Sat in the dark. Something wasn't adding up. If they had $7,000 minimum to spend on Brooke's spa habit over 6 months, they weren't stretched thin. They were selective, choosing her comfort over my survival. Again, but it was more than that. $7,000 was a massive amount. Nobody spent that kind of money on spa treatments unless they had significant disposable income. And if they had disposable income, why had I spent 4 years working 60-hour weeks, taking out loans, eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches while they claimed they couldn't help me? The question sat in my chest like a stone. I thought about the graduation morning, the empty chairs, the text message, the Venmo receipt for $890. Then I remembered something else. The family bank account. I'd been added to it freshman year for emergencies, Mom had said. In case something happened and I needed access to family funds quickly. I'd never used it, never even looked at it except to confirm it existed. I grabbed my phone, opened the banking app, logged into the shared account. And there it was. Transaction after transaction after transaction. All to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I scrolled slowly, my heart rate climbing with each entry. $890, 3 days ago, graduation day. $3,200 2 weeks before that. $4,500 in April. $2,400 in March. I kept scrolling. February, $3,800. January, $2,100. December, $5,200. The amounts were staggering. Not $7,000 over 6 months more. Much more. I grabbed a notebook from my nightstand. Started writing down dates and amounts with shaking hands. By the time I reached 18 months back, I'd filled 2 pages. I added the numbers 3 times to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. $67,840. $67,840. In 18 months. To a spa. For Brooke? I stared at the number until the digits stopped making sense. That was nearly as much as my entire student loan debt, $71,000, accumulated over 4 years of tuition, housing, books, fees, 4 years of working myself to exhaustion, of choosing sleep over social life, of calculating whether I could afford both shampoo and conditioner in the same month. They'd spent almost that much on my sister's spa treatments in a year and a half, while telling me they couldn't afford to help with my textbooks, my meal plan, my winter coat when mine ripped and I'd asked for $150. Money was tight, they'd said. Stretched thin. Budget better. I looked at my phone screen. At the transaction list that went on and on and on. $67,840. For spa days. While I collapsed from exhaustion during junior year and spent 3 days in the hospital because I'd pushed myself past the breaking point, trying to work enough hours to survive. I remembered that hospital stay. March of junior year. I'd fainted in the library during my graveyard shift, woke up in an ambulance. The doctor said I was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and my body had simply given up under the stress. I'd called my parents from the hospital. Mom said they were too busy to visit. It was a 4-hour drive and they had commitments. I checked the bank statement for that week in March, 2 years ago. March 17th, $1,850 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. The same day I was hospitalized. They didn't visit me because they were too busy. They were busy spending $1,850 on Brooke's spa day. Something inside my chest cracked wider. This wasn't favoritism anymore. This was something else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in bed with my laptop open, staring at 18 months of bank statements, trying to make the numbers make sense in a way that didn't involve my parents being monsters. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Brooke had a medical condition that required spa treatments. Maybe the transactions were mislabeled, and the money actually went somewhere else. Maybe I was lying to myself. I knew I was lying to myself. But the alternative was too big to hold in my head all at once, so I kept scrolling through statements, looking for something that would make this okay. Nothing did. By 3 a.m., I'd documented everything in a spreadsheet: dates, amounts, descriptions, 47 transactions over 18 months. Total, $67,840. I cross-referenced it with my own financial records. My student loans, $71,000 total borrowed over 4 years. I'd taken out an average of $17,750 per year to cover what scholarships and grants didn't. They'd spent $3,768 per month on Brooke's spa treatments. Per month. I made $1,400 per month at my best tutoring semester, worked 60 hours a week to earn it. And they'd been spending almost 3 times that amount on facials and massages and aromatherapy sessions for my sister. The math made me nauseous. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the text thread with my parents, the one where I'd asked for help dozens of times over the years. September, sophomore year. Dad, could you send $200 for winter textbooks? The used ones are sold out. His response: Claire, you need to learn to budget better. Check if the library has copies. The library didn't have copies. I'd worked an extra 20 hours that week and ate peanut butter for every meal to afford them. I checked the bank statement for that week. September 12th, $2,900 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. November junior year. Mom, my winter coat ripped and it's below freezing. Could you help with $150 for a new one? Her response: Honey, maybe try a thrift store? We're really tight on money right now. I'd bought a $30 coat from Goodwill that didn't zip properly and wore 3 layers underneath it all winter. Bank statement. That week, $3,400 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. April senior year. Dad, I need $300 for my cap and gown and graduation fees. Can you help? His response: You're about to have a Harvard degree. Surely you can manage $300. This is your responsibility. I'd skipped meals for 2 weeks to afford it. Bank statement. $4,500 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. Every time I'd asked for help, every single time they'd said no. And every time they said no, they'd spent thousands of dollars on Brooke within days. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. This wasn't favoritism. This was deliberate. This was a choice they made over and over, her comfort versus my survival, and they chose her every single time. I thought about the hospital stay again. March 17th, junior year. I'd woken up in the ER with an IV in my arm and a doctor telling me I'd pushed myself too hard, that my body had shut down from exhaustion and malnutrition. Do you have someone who can take care of you for a few days? The doctor had asked. I'd called my parents. Mom answered. I'd told her what happened, where I was, that the doctor said I needed rest and supervision. Oh, honey, she'd said, that sounds scary. But your father and I can't drive up there right now. We have plans. Can your roommate help? Plans. $1,850 worth of plans at Serenity Springs Day Spa, while I lay in a hospital bed hooked to an IV because I'd worked myself into collapse trying to afford textbooks they wouldn't help me buy. I closed my eyes, tried to breathe, couldn't. The room felt too small, my lungs felt too tight. Everything felt wrong. I grabbed my phone and opened my loan statements, the documents I'd been avoiding because seeing the total made me want to cry. $71,000 in student debt. $67,840 on spa treatments. They'd had the money. The whole time, they'd had the money. They could have paid for my textbooks, my meal plans, my winter coat, my medical bills from the hospital stay. They could have helped with my tuition, reduced my loans, made the last 4 years less brutal. But they didn't. They chose spa days instead. I pulled up my email, found the rejection messages from when I'd asked for help, counted them. 34 requests over 4 years. 34 times they'd said no. And according to the bank statements, 34 times they'd spent thousands on Brooke within the same week. It was a pattern, clear and documented and undeniable. Every time I struggled, she got pampered. Every time I asked for help, she got luxury. Every time I went without, she got everything. And they'd lied about it. Told me money was tight. Told me to budget better. Told me I needed to be financially responsible. While spending almost $70,000 on spa treatments. I opened my laptop, Pulled up my bank account. Looked at my current balance. $1,247. Then I looked at the family account balance. $43,680. $43,000 sitting in a shared account I technically had access to. Money I'd never touched because I wasn't raised to take what wasn't mine. But according to the transaction history, what was theirs had never included me anyway. I thought about taking it, thought about transferring enough to cover my moving expenses, my summer rent, my loan payment. I didn't. Not because I was noble, because I wanted documentation more than I wanted money. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about understanding what had been done to me. I took screenshots. Every transaction, every date, every amount. Saved them in a folder labeled Evidence because that's what it was. Evidence of 18 months of lies. Evidence of financial abuse disguised as parenting. Evidence that I'd been working myself to death while they funded my sister's luxury lifestyle and told me I needed to try harder. By 6 a.m., I had 247 screenshots. By 7 a.m., I'd created a timeline matching every denied request to every spa transaction. The pattern was perfect. Grotesque, but perfect. I stared at my computer screen as the sun came up, and I realized something that made my stomach drop. If they'd been lying about this, what else had they lied about? I couldn't leave it alone. The spreadsheet sat on my laptop like a living thing, breathing and growing every time I looked at it. Numbers that told a story I hadn't known I was living. For 18 months from January of my junior year through graduation, my parents had spent $67,840 on Brooke's spa treatments while telling me they couldn't afford to help with my basic needs. 18 months. I needed to see the whole pattern. I made coffee I wouldn't drink and opened a new document. Started writing down every time I'd asked for money during those 18 months, every time they'd said no, and every reason they'd given. The list grew fast. January, junior year. Asked for $300 for spring semester textbooks. 3 books, all required. None available in the library. Dad's response: "You're old enough to cover your own supplies. This is part of being an adult." Bank statement. January 14th. $2,100 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I remembered that week. I'd worked 42 hours at the library and 12 hours catering a wedding to scrape together enough for used copies. Survived on ramen and apples stolen from the dining hall. February. Asked for $180 to replace my laptop charger and buy a winter parking pass. Mom's response: "Can't you just use the library computers? We're really tight on money this month." Bank statement. February 9th. $3,800 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd gone without a parking pass, walked 40 minutes each way to campus in February snow because the bus cost $3 per trip and I couldn't afford it. March, the hospital stay. I didn't ask for money that time, just asked them to visit. They said no. Bank statement. March 17th. $1,850 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd spent 3 days in the hospital alone. Priya had visited every day after her classes, brought me food from the dining hall, helped me catch up on assignments I'd missed. When I was discharged, she'd driven me back to campus and spent the night in my room to make sure I didn't collapse again. My parents called once. 4-minute conversation. Mom asked if I was feeling better and reminded me not to let this affect your grades. April. Asked for $150 for groceries and medicine after the hospital. I'd missed 2 weeks of work and my bank account was overdrawn. Dad's response: "Claire, you can't keep running to us every time you have a problem. Figure it out." Bank statement, April 23rd. $4,500 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd gone to the food bank, stood in line for an hour with other students and local families, filled a bag with canned goods and pasta and day-old bread, told myself it was temporary, that things would get better. They didn't. May. Asked for $200 for summer housing deposit. The deadline was approaching, and I was short after covering medical bills. Mom's response: "We already helped you so much with college. You can't expect us to fund everything." Helped me? They hadn't helped me with anything. My scholarships and loans had covered tuition and housing. I'd paid for everything else myself. Bank statement. May 8th. $3,200 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd borrowed money from Priya. Paid her back over 3 months, $20 at a time. June through August. Summer break. I worked 70 hours a week, library job, catering, and a new position at a campus bookstore. Saved every dollar for senior year. Bank statements, those 3 months, $8,600 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I didn't ask them for anything that summer. Didn't call except when they called me first. Tried to be independent, prove I didn't need them. They spent $8,600 on spa treatments, while I ate peanut butter sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. September, senior year. Asked for $250 for textbooks and lab fees. Dad's response: "You're a senior now. Act like it. Budget your money better." Bank statement. September 5th, $2,900 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd sold my guitar, the one gift from my grandmother before she died, to a pawn shop for $180. Worked extra shifts to cover the rest. October. Asked for $100 for a career fair outfit. The recruiting events required business professional attire, and my only suit was from high school, 2 sizes too small and visibly worn. Mom's response: "Just wear what you have. Employers care about your resume, not your clothes." Bank statement. October 12th, $3,400 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd bought a blazer from Goodwill for $15. It didn't match my pants and the sleeves were too long, but it was all I could afford. November. Asked for $500 for grad school application fees. I was applying to law schools, each application costing $75, $100. Dad's response: "If you can't afford to apply, maybe you're not ready for grad school." Bank statement. November 18th. $4,200 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd applied to 4 schools instead of 10. Got into 3. Chose the one with the full scholarship because I couldn't afford anything else. December through February. I didn't ask for anything. Christmas came and went. They gave me a $25 gift card to Starbucks. Brooke got a new laptop, $1,800, designer handbag, $950, and a weekend spa retreat, $3,400. Bank statements. Those 3 months, $11,200 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. March, senior year. Asked for $300 for graduation, cap, gown, and fees. Dad's response: "You're about to graduate from Harvard. You should be able to cover your own graduation costs." Bank statement. March 21st. $4,500 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. I'd skipped meals for 2 weeks, lost 8 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. April. Asked for $200 for moving expenses and summer rent deposit. Dad's response: "We're stretched thin right now. Figure something out." Bank statement. April 30th. $5,200 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. May. Graduation week. Didn't ask for money. Just asked them to show up. They didn't. Bank statement. May 27th. $890 to Serenity Springs Day Spa, the graduation glow package. I sat back and looked at the document I'd created. 18 months. 18 requests for help, totaling $3,530. 18 denials. And $67,840 spent on spa treatments in that same period. The math was brutal. They'd spent 19 times more on Brooke's spa days than I'd asked for in basic survival needs. 19 times. I'd asked for textbooks and they bought her massages. I'd asked for food money after being hospitalized and they bought her facials. I'd asked for a winter coat and they bought her body wraps. Every single time. And they'd lied. Not just by omission, directly lied. Money is tight. We're stretched thin. We can't afford it. They could afford it. They just didn't want to spend it on me. I thought about something else. Something that had been nagging at the edge of my mind since I started looking at the bank statements. Where was that money coming from? Dad was a lawyer, made decent money, maybe $150,000 per year. Mom worked part-time at a nonprofit, maybe $35,000. Combined income of $185,000. That was comfortable, but not spend $70,000 on spa treatments in 18 months. Comfortable. Not when you also had a mortgage, car payments, utilities, their own expenses. I pulled up the full bank account history, looked at the deposits. Dad's paychecks came in bi-weekly, consistent amounts. Mom's monthly, smaller. But there was another deposit, one I'd never noticed before. Every month, like clockwork, $4,000 deposited from an account labeled CJH Trust. CJH. Claire Jennifer Hastings. My initials. I stared at the screen. My trust account? I didn't have a trust account. Or did I? My grandmother had died when I was 15. She'd been wealthy old money from her family, investments she'd managed carefully her entire life. At the funeral, I remembered overhearing something about trusts for the grandchildren. But I'd never seen any money from it, never been told it existed. I checked the deposits again. $4,000 per month. For 18 months. That was $72,000. The same amount as the spa treatments. My hands were shaking again. I grabbed my phone. Called my dad's brother, Uncle Thomas. We weren't close, but he'd been the executor of my grandmother's will. He answered on the third ring. Claire, is everything okay? Uncle Thomas, did Grandma leave me a trust? Pause. Long pause. Yes, he said slowly. She left trust funds for both you and Brooke, $400,000 each, managed by your parents until you turned 25. My vision blurred. How? How is it managed? Your parents have access to distribute funds for your education and living expenses. Anything left at 25 becomes yours outright. Education and living expenses. Has any money been distributed from my trust? Another pause. I don't manage the day-to-day, Claire. Your father handles that. But yes, I believe they've been taking monthly distributions to help with your college costs. Help with my college costs. I looked at the bank statement. $4,000 per month going into their account. $3,768 per month going to Serenity Springs Day Spa. Uncle Thomas, I said carefully. Have you ever seen receipts for how that money was spent? No. Your father said he'd handle the documentation. Why? No reason, thanks. I hung up. Sat in silence. They'd been taking money from my trust fund, money my grandmother left specifically for my education and living expenses, and spending it on Brooke's spa treatments. While telling me they couldn't afford to help me. While I worked 60-hour weeks and took out $71,000 in student loans. While I collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition, they'd stolen my inheritance and used it to pamper my sister. I pulled up the bank statements again. Calculated exactly. 18 months of $4,000 monthly deposits, $72,000. 18 months of spa treatments, $67,840. They'd taken my trust money and spent almost all of it on Brooke. The rest probably went to her other expenses, the new phone, the ring light, the business loans that never got repaid. Everything became clear. This wasn't favoritism. This was theft. I sat in my apartment as the sun rose, staring at evidence of 18 months of lies. And I realized something. I'd been working myself to death to survive. While they stole my inheritance to fund my sister's luxury lifestyle, the crack in my chest split wide open. And on the other side was rage. I told Priya everything at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Couldn't hold it anymore. The rage had been building for 3 days since the discovery about the trust fund, and I felt like a pressure cooker with a faulty valve. One more minute alone with those bank statements and I'd explode. I texted her. She responded in seconds. Always. Come over. Priya lived 2 buildings away from me, a studio apartment identical to mine, except hers had plants that stayed alive and art on the walls, and a kitchen table that wasn't covered in unpaid bills. I knocked. She opened the door, wearing pajamas and concern. What happened? I held up my laptop. Can I show you something? Of course. We sat at her kitchen table, the small wooden one she'd bought at a yard sale, and refinished herself. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet. She leaned in. Started reading. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then shock, then something harder. Claire. Her voice was quiet. Dangerous quiet. Is this real? Every transaction is documented in the family bank account. I have screenshots. $67,000. She scrolled down. In 18 months. On spa treatments. While I was taking out student loans. My voice cracked. While I was working 3 jobs. While I collapsed and ended up in the hospital. She kept scrolling. Stopped at March 17th. $1,850 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. This is the day you were hospitalized, she said. Yeah. The day they said they were too busy to visit. Yeah. She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. That's not favoritism, Claire. That's abuse. The word hit me like cold water. Abuse. I'd been thinking it but hadn't said it. Hearing someone else say it made it real, in a way my own thoughts couldn't. There's more. I pulled up the trust fund documentation, showed her the $4,000 monthly deposits, explained what Uncle Thomas had told me about Grandma's trust. Priya read it twice. Then she stood up, paced to the kitchen and back, sat down heavily. They stole from you, she said. They took money your grandmother left for your education and spent it on your sister's spa days. Technically, they had legal access to distribute it. For your education and living expenses. Her voice rose. Not for facials and hot stone massages for your sister. Claire, you were eating ramen and working 60-hour weeks while they were stealing your inheritance. Hearing her say it blunt and angry and protective broke something open inside me. I started crying. Not the pretty kind. The ugly kind, where you can't breathe and your face gets splotchy, and you make sounds that don't resemble human language. Priya moved her chair next to mine and pulled me into a hug. I worked so hard, I sobbed into her shoulder. I did everything right. I got the grades and the scholarships, and I never complained, and I thought if I just achieved enough, they'd love you the way they love her, Priya finished. I know. But they had the money the whole time, my money. And they watched me struggle and they lied and they... I know. She held me tighter. I know. We sat like that for a long time. Her kitchen clock ticked, traffic sounds drifted up from the street. My breathing eventually evened out. When I pulled away, Priya handed me a tissue. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. I wiped my eyes. I don't even know if I can do anything. They had legal access to the trust. Legal access for your benefit, not for Brooke's spa addiction, but proving they misused it. Claire. She turned her laptop toward me. My cousin graduated from law school last year. She works at a firm downtown that handles family law and financial disputes. I'm calling her tomorrow. I can't afford a lawyer. She does consultations for free, and when she hears this... Priya gestured at my screen. Trust me, she'll want to help. I hesitated. Talking to a lawyer made this real, made this a fight instead of a painful family secret I could bury and pretend didn't exist. What if... I stopped. Started again. What if I'm overreacting? What if this is just normal family stuff and I'm being... Claire Jennifer Hastings. Priya's voice went sharp. You are not overreacting. Normal families don't steal $70,000 from their children. Normal families don't spend their daughter's trust fund on spa treatments while that daughter works herself into hospitalization. This is not normal. She was right. I knew she was right. But acknowledging it meant acknowledging that my parents had deliberately harmed me for 18 months. That every denial, every lie, every "we can't afford it" had been calculated cruelty backed by stolen money. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? Of making it real. Once I talk to a lawyer, once I start building a case, I can't unknow this. I can't pretend it was just favoritism anymore. Priya was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up one of my screenshots. April 30th, senior year. The day after I'd asked for $200 for moving expenses and been told they were stretched thin. $5,200 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. You already know it, she said softly. You've known it for 3 days. Talking to a lawyer doesn't make it more real. It just gives you tools to deal with the reality. I looked at the numbers, thought about the hospital bed, the ramen dinners, the guitar I'd sold, the winter coat from Goodwill that didn't zip properly, the empty chairs at graduation. Okay, I said. Call your cousin. Priya smiled, fierce and protective. I'll text her tonight. We'll get you an appointment this week. She made tea. We sat at her kitchen table until 2 a.m., going through my documentation, organizing evidence, building a timeline. At one point she said, "You know what's crazy? You have better documentation than most prosecutors. Bank statements, dates, amounts, cross-reference denials. You've built an entire case." I wasn't building a case. I was just trying to understand. Same thing, she said. Understanding requires evidence. By the time I left, I had a folder on my laptop labeled "Evidence Complete" and a text from Priya's cousin agreeing to meet Friday morning at 10 a.m. I walked back to my apartment under streetlights, clutching my laptop like a shield. The rage was still there. But underneath it, something new. Determination. They'd stolen from me, lied to me, watched me suffer while spending my inheritance on luxury treatments for their favorite daughter. And now I had proof. Now I had help. Now I had a chance to make them answer for what they'd done. I didn't know if I'd take it yet. But for the first time in 3 days, I felt like I could breathe. Attorney Sarah Rodriguez had kind eyes and a shark smile. I noticed both within 30 seconds of meeting her. Her office was downtown Boston, 12th floor of a glass building that reflected clouds and made me feel small. The waiting room had leather chairs and magazines about wealth management that I'd never read. I sat with my laptop clutched in both hands, feeling like an imposter. Priya sat beside me. She'd taken the morning off work to come with me. "You've got this," she whispered. I didn't feel like I had anything except a folder full of evidence that my parents were terrible people. "Claire Hastings?" A woman appeared in the doorway. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back. Navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I stood. "That's me. Sarah Rodriguez." She shook my hand. Firm grip. "Come on back." Her office was smaller than I expected, but organized with military precision. Law books lined one wall. Framed degrees from Boston University hung on another. Her desk was clear except for a legal pad and a laptop. She gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "Priya told me a bit about your situation, but I'd like to hear it from you. Start from the beginning." I told her everything. The Harvard acceptance, the empty graduation chairs, the discovery of the spa transactions, the trust fund distributions. 18 months of denials while they spent $67,840. She took notes the entire time. Didn't interrupt, just nodded and wrote. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Can I see your documentation?" I opened my laptop, showed her the spreadsheet, the bank statements, the timeline of denials matched to spa transactions. She studied them for a long time. Then she sat back. "Claire, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your parents did has several legal names, and none of them are good." My stomach dropped. "The trust fund distributions fall under breach of fiduciary duty," she continued. "Your grandmother left that money for your education and living expenses. Your parents had a legal obligation to use those funds for your benefit, not your sister's comfort. But they had access. Access doesn't mean carte blanche. Her voice was firm. They were trustees. Trustees have a duty to act in the beneficiary's best interest. Taking trust money intended for you and spending it on spa treatments for someone else is textbook breach of fiduciary duty. The words felt heavy. Beyond that, she said, there's a strong argument for intentional infliction of emotional distress. They watched you work yourself into hospitalization while spending your money on luxury services for your sister. That's not just negligence, that's deliberate. Could I sue them? Yes. She didn't hesitate. You could file a civil lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty and emotional distress. The trust fund alone gives you clear standing. What would that look like? She pulled up a document on her computer, turned the screen toward me. Civil litigation typically takes 12 to 18 months from filing to resolution. We'd sue for the full amount of the trust distribution's $72,000 plus damages for emotional distress. Given your hospitalization and the documented pattern of neglect, we could argue for compensatory damages in the range of $50,000 to $150,000. My head spun. $50,000 to $150,000. What would it cost me? I asked. My firm charges a $5,000 retainer for cases like this, then $350 per hour. A case of this complexity would likely run $15,000 to $25,000 in legal fees. Money I didn't have. She must have seen my face because she added, some attorneys work on contingency for cases this strong, meaning they take a percentage of the settlement instead of upfront fees. I can recommend colleagues if cost is prohibitive. What about criminal charges? Priya asked. Is this fraud? Attorney Rodriguez considered. Potentially. If the DA's office wanted to pursue it, there's an argument for financial exploitation. But criminal cases are harder to bring and harder to control. The burden of proof is higher, and you don't get compensation, just the satisfaction of prosecution. She looked at me directly. Claire, I've been practicing family law for 20 years. I've seen favoritism, neglect, financial manipulation. This is one of the most documented cases of deliberate financial and emotional abuse I've encountered. She tapped my spreadsheet. You have bank statements, timelines, medical records, witness testimony. This isn't a he said, she said situation. This is provable. The word made something solidify in my chest. Provable. What are my options? I asked. 3 main paths. She held up fingers. 1. File a civil lawsuit. Long process, expensive up front, but potential for significant compensation and legal accountability. 2. Demand letter. I draft a formal letter outlining the breach of fiduciary duty and emotional distress, demanding compensation, say, $15,000 and a written apology. If they refuse, we can still sue later. This is faster and cheaper. 3. Public exposure. Not a legal remedy, but you mentioned they care about appearances. Sometimes the threat of public knowledge is enough to force settlement. She leaned forward. Or some combination. Demand letter backed by the threat of lawsuit and exposure. I sat with that. Thought about my parents, about Dad's law firm and Mom's garden club, and their carefully constructed image as devoted parents. How long would a demand letter take? I asked. I could draft it in a week. Send it certified mail. They'd have 30 days to respond. And if they ignore it, then we file suit, or you go public, or both. I looked at Priya. She nodded. I can't afford a full lawsuit right now, I said slowly. But a demand letter. How much would that cost? $500 for consultation and drafting. I had $1,247 in my bank account. Needed most of it for rent and food. But $500 to make them face what they'd done? Worth it. Let's do the demand letter, I said. Attorney Rodriguez smiled, the shark smile. Good choice. I'll need copies of all your documentation, bank statements, trust fund information, medical records from your hospitalization, and a written statement from you detailing the emotional impact. I can get all of that. One more thing. She closed her laptop. Claire, if we send this letter, your relationship with your parents will likely be irreparably damaged. Possibly your relationship with extended family too. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the empty chairs, the $890 spa day on graduation morning, the 18 months of watching me suffer while they stole my inheritance. My relationship with them is already damaged, I said. They just don't know I know it yet. She nodded. Then let's make sure they understand exactly what they've done. We spent another hour going over details. She explained the legal terminology, the process, the likely responses. By the time we left, I had a plan. Attorney Rodriguez would draft the demand letter outlining the breach of fiduciary duty, the $72,000 in misused trust funds, and the documented emotional harm. She'd demand $15,000 in compensation, a fraction of what they'd taken, but enough to hurt, and a written apology acknowledging their financial misconduct. If they refused, we'd discuss next steps. Lawsuit. Exposure. Both. Priya and I walked out into the bright June morning. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. "Powerful," I said finally. "For the first time in 18 months, I feel powerful." She grinned. "Good, because you are." We got coffee, sat in a park near the common. I opened my laptop and started writing the statement. Attorney Rodriguez needed a detailed account of every denial, every lie, every moment I'd struggled while they spent my money on someone else. It took 3 hours. By the end, I had 12 pages. By the end, I was crying again. But this time, the tears felt different. Not helpless. Angry. And anger, I was learning, was so much more useful than grief. Attorney Rodriguez sent the first draft of the demand letter 4 days later. I read it 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table with cold coffee and a pit in my stomach. Demand for compensation breach of fiduciary duty, and misappropriation of trust funds. The legal language made everything sound official and terrifying and real. The letter laid out everything. The $72,000 in trust distributions, the $67,840 spent on spa treatments, the documented timeline of denied assistance, the hospitalization that occurred while they spent $1,850 on luxury services. It named dates, quoted bank transactions, referenced my medical records. It was brutal. It was perfect. The final paragraph demanded $15,000 in compensation within 30 days, plus a written apology acknowledging the financial misconduct and emotional harm caused. If we do not receive satisfactory response within 30 days, the letter concluded, Miss Hastings reserves the right to pursue civil litigation and will not hesitate to make public the full documentation of financial exploitation she has suffered. I called Attorney Rodriguez. "It's good," I said. "Really good. But is the public exposure threat legal?" "Absolutely. You're not threatening to lie or defame. You're stating your right to share truthful information. That's protected speech. They'll hate it." "Good." Her voice was firm. "They should be uncomfortable. They should be afraid. They did something unconscionable and got away with it for 18 months because you didn't know. Now you know. When do we send it?" "I can send it tomorrow. Certified mail. Signature required. They'll have it within 3 business days." I hesitated. This was the point of no return. Once that letter arrived, everything would change. No more pretending. No more uncomfortable holidays where we avoided the tension. No more phone calls where Mom asked about my life like she cared. This would end us. But we were already ended, weren't we? I just hadn't admitted it yet. "Send it," I said. "Done. I'll email you tracking information." I hung up, sat in silence. Then I opened my laptop and kept working. Because Attorney Rodriguez was right, I had documentation most prosecutors would envy. But I wanted more. I wanted every piece of evidence organized, cross-referenced, undeniable. I pulled up the family bank account again, went back further than 18 months. If they'd been stealing from my trust for a year and a half? Had it started earlier? The trust distributions began in January of my junior year. Before that, nothing. So January was when Grandma's trust finished probate and became accessible. And immediately, they started taking $4,000 per month. For my education and living expenses, I pulled up my own bank records from that time, January through March, junior year. I'd asked them for help twice. $300 for textbooks, $180 for laptop charger and parking pass. Both denied. Meanwhile, $12,000 had been distributed from my trust in those 3 months. Where did it go if not to me? I checked the family account's outgoing transactions more carefully. January, $2,100 to Serenity Springs, $1,400 to Brooke Hastings via Venmo. February, $3,800 to Serenity Springs, $950 to Nordstrom, Mom's card, but shipping address was Brooke's apartment. March, $1,850 to Serenity Springs, $2,200 to BMW Service Center, Brooke's car. I started a new spreadsheet, tracked every dollar distributed from my trust against every dollar spent. The pattern was worse than I thought. Of the $72,000 distributed from my trust over 18 months, I could account for $89,340 in spending on Brooke, more than they'd taken from my trust, which meant they'd been supplementing trust money with their own income to fund her lifestyle. They'd chosen her so completely that they were spending money they didn't even have my money plus theirs to keep her comfortable. While I worked 3 jobs, I documented everything, created categories. Spa services, $67,840. Direct cash transfers, $14,200. Shopping, $4,800. Car expenses, $2,500. Then I did something else. I pulled up Brooke's social media again. Started screenshotting. Every post from the last 18 months that showed the spa visits, the shopping hauls, the car service appointments, every caption that thanked Mom and Dad for their support. Every comment from Mom, "You deserve it, sweetheart." Every like from Dad. Public proof that they knew exactly where the money was going. I saved 156 screenshots. Then I went through my own text message history with my parents. Every request for help, every denial, every excuse about tight money and financial responsibility. 34 messages over 18 months. I screenshotted those too. By midnight, I had 3 folders. Financial evidence, bank statements, trust documents, transaction histories, medical evidence, hospital records, doctor's notes, bills from the hospitalization, communication evidence, text messages, social media posts, emails. Everything cross-referenced by date. Everything labeled and organized. Attorney Rodriguez had said this was the most documented case she'd seen. I was making sure it stayed that way. Because if they tried to deny it, if they tried to claim I was lying or exaggerating or being ungrateful, I wanted evidence that would make denial impossible. I texted Priya. Finished organizing everything. 300 pages of evidence. She responded immediately. "Holy shit, you're terrifying. I love it." I smiled. Then I opened a new document. Started writing a list of witnesses who could testify if this went to court. Priya, she'd seen my struggles firsthand, visited me in the hospital, knew about the constant work schedule. My college roommates, they'd watched me eat ramen for months, seen me work through holidays, heard me cry after phone calls with my parents. Uncle Thomas, he could testify about the trust fund and its intended purpose. The woman from graduation who'd mentioned my parents being big spenders if I could find her. Hospital staff, the doctors who'd treated me for exhaustion and malnutrition. I had testimony. I had documents. I had proof. What I didn't have was any idea how my parents would react. Would they apologize? Unlikely. Would they deny everything? Possible. Would they pay the $15,000 just to make this go away? Maybe. Or would they fight? Part of me hoped they'd fight. Part of me wanted them to refuse the demand letter, force this into a courtroom, Make them sit on a witness stand and explain to a judge why they'd spent $67,840 on spa treatments while their daughter worked herself into a hospital bed. I wanted them to face consequences. Real consequences. Not just family drama or awkward holidays. Legal consequences. Public consequences. The kind that followed you and changed how people saw you, and made you understand that actions had costs. I thought about the empty chairs at graduation, about the $890 spa day they'd chosen over watching me walk across that stage, about 18 months of lies while they stole my inheritance. The anger I'd felt 3 days ago, hot and desperate and overwhelming, had cooled into something harder. Resolve. I saved all my files, backed them up in 3 places. Then I emailed Attorney Rodriguez. Evidence folders attached. Everything is organized and ready. Send the letter. She responded an hour later. Letter mailed this morning. They'll have it by Friday. Buckle up. I closed my laptop, looked around my tiny studio apartment, the cheap furniture, the empty fridge, the stack of loan payment reminders on my desk. This was what $71,000 in student debt bought you. This was what working 60-hour weeks earned you. This was what happened when your parents chose someone else over you for your entire life. But I wasn't powerless anymore. I had evidence. I had a lawyer. I had a demand letter in the mail that would blow up their carefully constructed world. And in 30 days, one way or another, I'd have answers. Friday came. I checked the tracking number obsessively. Delivered. 10:23 a.m. Signed by Robert Hastings. Dad had the letter. He'd opened it. He knew. My phone didn't ring. I waited 3 hours. Nothing. 4 hours. Nothing. By evening, still nothing. I texted Priya. He signed for it this morning. No response. She texted back. Give it time. He's probably in shock. Or denial. Or calling his own lawyer. I imagined Dad reading that letter, seeing the bank statements, the transaction histories, the timeline of every time he told me no while they spent my money on Brooke. I imagined his face. Part of me felt guilty. Most of me felt powerful. The silence stretched. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the 4th day, my phone finally rang. Mom's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to the message an hour later. Claire, honey, we need to talk. Your father and I received a very upsetting letter from some lawyer. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Call us back. We can explain everything. Her voice was calm. Reasonable. Like she was talking to a child throwing a tantrum. A terrible misunderstanding. I saved the voicemail. Didn't call back. 2 hours later, Dad texted. This is ridiculous, Claire. You're embarrassing yourself. Call off your lawyer or you'll regret this. I screenshotted the text. Sent it to Attorney Rodriguez. She replied, perfect, threatening language. Save everything they send. I smiled. They weren't apologizing. They weren't offering compensation. They were denying and threatening. Which meant this wasn't over. This was just beginning. And I was ready. The voicemails kept coming. Mom called 6 times in 3 days. Left messages that started calm and ended desperate. Claire, please call us back. Honey, we need to talk about this misunderstanding. You're hurting the family with these accusations. Your father is very upset. You need to fix this. I didn't respond. Dad sent texts, short, threatening. Call off your lawyer. You're making a huge mistake. This will destroy our family. Is that what you want? I forwarded everything to Attorney Rodriguez. She called me on day 5. They're panicking, she said. Good. Let them panic. The 30-day deadline is 3 weeks away. If they want to settle, they'll reach out through proper channels. What if they don't? Then we file suit, or you go public. Your choice. I thought about that. Going public. Making everything visible. Then my phone rang again. Different number, I answered without thinking. Claire? It's Aunt Diane. Dad's sister. We weren't close, but she'd always been kinder than the rest of the family. Hi, Aunt Diane. Your father called me. Her voice was careful. He's very upset about this lawyer situation. He asked me to talk to you. Of course he did. What did he tell you? I asked. That you sent a demand letter claiming they misused some trust fund money. He says it's a misunderstanding. Did he show you the bank statements? Pause. No. Would you like to see them? Longer pause. Yes, she said quietly. I would. I sent her the spreadsheet, the timeline, the trust fund documentation. She called back 20 minutes later. Claire. Her voice shook. Is this real? Every transaction is documented. I have 18 months of bank statements. They spent $70,000 on Brooke's spa treatments, $67,840 from my trust fund. Silence. Then, last year I asked your father to lend me $5,000 for my surgery. He said they didn't have it. That money was too tight. My chest tightened. When was that? I asked. September. I pulled up my spreadsheet. September, $2,900 to Serenity Springs Day Spa. He spent $2,900 on spa treatments that month, I said, while telling you he couldn't help with surgery. Jesus Christ. She sounded like she was crying. Claire, what are you going to do? I don't know yet. The lawyer gave them 30 days to respond to the demand letter. And if they don't? I thought about the empty chairs at graduation, about 18 months of lies, about Aunt Diane being denied surgery money while Brooke got massages. Then I make sure everyone knows what they did. How? They're throwing a family reunion barbecue in 3 weeks. They announced it on Facebook. 150 people. Aunt Diane understood immediately. You're going to confront them there. I'm going to show everyone the evidence. Let them explain to the family why they spent my inheritance on spa treatments while I worked myself into a hospital bed. Claire, Aunt Diane, they chose to ignore the demand letter. They chose to threaten me instead of apologizing. They're still choosing Brooke over everyone else. Someone needs to stop protecting them. She was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you need from me? Just don't warn them I'm coming. I won't. Her voice hardened. And Claire, I'll be standing right behind you. 3 weeks until the reunion. I spent them preparing like I was going to war. Because I was. Attorney Rodriguez helped me create evidence packets, 12 pages each, printed in color, bank statements, transaction timelines, the cross-reference denials, everything laid out in clear, undeniable detail. I printed 50 copies. Priya helped me organize them into folders labeled with the family reunion date. You're really doing this, she said, watching me work. Yeah. They're going to lose their minds. Good. She grinned. I'm coming with you. Someone needs to film this for evidence. You don't have to. Claire, she looked at me seriously. You've been protecting yourself alone for years. Let someone protect you for once. I nodded. Couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. We planned everything. I'd arrive early, place the evidence packets on tables around the BBQ setup, wait until the family speech tradition, the moment when everyone gathered and parents typically toasted their children's accomplishments. That's when I'd speak. That's when I'd show them everything. Priya would film from the back, document the whole thing, evidence for Attorney Rodriguez if they tried to claim I'd lied or defamed them. What if they try to stop you? Priya asked. They can't. It's not their property they're hosting at a public park. And I'm not doing anything illegal, just sharing documented facts. They'll hate you for this. They already do. They just haven't admitted it. The deadline for the demand letter came and went. No response. No apology. No compensation. Just silence and denial. Attorney Rodriguez called on day 31. They've made their choice, she said. Do you want to file suit or handle this your way? I looked at the 50 evidence packets stacked on my desk, at the family reunion date circled on my calendar, at the speech I'd written and rewritten 20 times. My way, I said. Then I'll be on standby for next steps. Good luck, Claire. Make them listen. I hung up. Stared at my reflection in my laptop screen. 22 years old. Harvard graduate. About to blow up my family in front of 150 witnesses. I should have felt scared. I felt ready. The week before the reunion, my parents' social media went into overdrive. Mom posted photos of BBQ preparations. So excited to celebrate family this weekend. Dad shared the event details publicly. Join us Saturday at Riverside Park for a Hastings family reunion. All are welcome. Brooke posted a selfie with a spa face mask. Getting reunion ready. Can't wait to see everyone. Special thanks to Mom and Dad for always supporting me. I saved every post. Added them to my evidence file. The contrast would be perfect, their public image of family devotion versus the private reality of financial exploitation. Priya came over Thursday night. Helped me organize the final details. You have your speech memorized? She asked. Yes. Evidence packets ready? 50 copies. Organized chronologically. Backup plan if they try to remove you? You're filming. Aunt Diane is there. They can't touch me without looking violent in front of everyone. She nodded. How are you feeling? Honestly? Terrified. Powerful. Both at the same time. Ready, I said. Friday arrived. The day before the reunion. I woke up at 6 a.m. from dreams I couldn't remember but left me shaking. Checked my phone. 3 new messages in the family group chat. Mom. Can't wait to see everyone tomorrow. Claire, you're still coming, right? Dad. Weather looks perfect for the BBQ. Should be a great day. Brooke. Bringing my new camera to get photos of everyone. Family is everything. They had no idea what was coming. I typed a response. I'll be there. Mom reacted with a heart emoji. Oblivious. I spent Friday preparing mentally. Went for a run. Showered. Ate something, even though my stomach rejected the idea of food. Practiced my speech one more time in front of my mirror. They didn't miss my Harvard graduation. They chose my sister's spa day. My voice didn't shake anymore. For 18 months, they took money from my trust fund money my grandmother left for my education and spent it on luxury spa treatments for my sister. While I worked 3 jobs, while I took out $71,000 in student loans, while I collapsed from exhaustion and spent 3 days in the hospital. The words came easily now. I'd lived them. Now I just had to speak them. Priya texted at 8 p.m. You good? Me. Yeah. See you tomorrow. Her. We've got this. You've got this. I looked at the evidence packets one more time. 50 folders, 12 pages each, 600 pages of documented betrayal. On the top of each stack, I'd paper-clipped a note card with one sentence. The Hastings family asked you to celebrate today. I ask you to witness the truth. I went to bed early. Didn't sleep. Lay in the dark thinking about the empty chairs at graduation, about the $890 spa day, about 18 months of lies that had brought me to this moment. By 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep. Got up. Made coffee. Sat at my kitchen table watching the city wake up outside my window. At 6 a.m., Priya knocked. Thought you might be awake, she said, holding 2 breakfast sandwiches. We ate in silence. At 7 a.m., we loaded the evidence packets into my car. At 8 a.m., we started driving. The reunion started at noon. I wanted to arrive early, before the crowd, when I could set up without interference. The drive took 90 minutes. Priya drove. I sat in the passenger seat, watching trees and highway blur past. You can still back out, she said quietly. I know. But you won't. No. She nodded. Good. We arrived at Riverside Park at 9:45 a.m. The pavilion area was already being set up. White tent, tables, chairs, a DJ booth. Catering staff moved around with clipboards and coolers. No family yet. Perfect. I grabbed the boxes of evidence packets. Started placing them on tables. One at every seat in the main gathering area, extras stacked near the entrance. The catering manager noticed me. You with the Hastings party? Yes. These are programs for the event. She glanced at a folder, shrugged. No thank you. By 10:30, every table had evidence packets. By 11, the first family members started arriving. Cousins I barely knew, aunts and uncles, neighbors, parents' friends from church and work. They picked up the folders, some opened them immediately. Most set them aside, assuming they were event programs or family history materials. No one looked closely yet. At 11:30, Mom and Dad arrived. They saw me standing near the pavilion entrance. Mom's face lit up. She rushed over, hugged me. I stood stiff in her arms. Dad nodded from behind her. Good to see you. You too, I lied. Brooke arrived 20 minutes later, bounced over with her camera. Claire, oh my God, we need sister photos. She posed beside me. I didn't smile. She didn't notice. By noon, over 150 people had gathered. The pavilion hummed with conversation and laughter. Kids ran around. The DJ played classic rock. Catering staff circulated with appetizers. A family reunion. Perfect and normal and exactly what my parents wanted everyone to see. I stood at the edge of the pavilion with Priya beside me. Aunt Diane found us, squeezed my hand, said nothing. At 12:30, Dad tapped the microphone. Can everyone gather around? We want to say a few words. The crowd moved toward the center. I stayed where I was, heart pounding, hands shaking. This was it. Dad's voice booms through the speakers. Thank you all for coming. Linda and I are so grateful to have family and friends here to celebrate. Applause. I watch from the back. Priya's phone is already recording. Mom takes the microphone next. We're so blessed, she says. Our daughters make us so proud. Brooke's spa business is taking off, and Claire just graduated from Harvard. More applause. I feel it building. The rage. The words. The truth clawing its way up my throat. We wanted today to be about celebrating family, Dad continues. About recognizing how far we've all come. He's smiling. Mom's smiling. Brooke's taking photos. And I'm done waiting. I walk forward. Through the crowd. People turn, notice me moving. I reach the microphone area. Stand 10 feet from my parents. Can I say something? My voice carries, loud, clear. Mom blinks. Oh, of course, sweetheart. Come on up. She thinks I'm going to thank them. I take the microphone, turn to face the crowd. 157 people, I counted. I'm Claire, I say, Harvard graduate. You may have noticed my parents missed my graduation 3 weeks ago. Mom's smile falters. They spent that morning at Serenity Springs Day Spa instead. My sister needed a facial. An $890 graduation glow package. Silence. Complete silence. For 18 months, from January of my junior year through graduation, my parents took $4,000 per month from my trust fund, money my grandmother left for my education. I hold up a bank statement. They took $72,000 total. Gasps ripple through the crowd. And they spent $67,840 of it on my sister's spa treatments. I point to Brooke. She's frozen, camera in hand, face draining of color. Every time I asked for help, $300 for textbooks, $150 for a winter coat, $200 for moving expenses, I was told money was tight, that I needed to budget better, that I needed to be financially responsible. My voice doesn't shake. But money wasn't tight. They were spending an average of $3,768 per month on spa services. For Brooke, Uncle James stands up. What the hell, Robert? Dad's face is red. Claire, this is inappropriate. Is it inappropriate to tell the truth? I cut him off. March 17th, 2 years ago. I collapsed from exhaustion, worked 60 hours a week, 3 jobs, barely eating. I was hospitalized for 3 days. I look directly at Mom. You said you were too busy to visit. Remember? She opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. You were busy spending $1,850 at Serenity Springs Day Spa that same day. More gasps. Aunt Diane is crying. The folders on your tables contain everything, I continue. Bank statements, transaction dates, amounts. Every time they told me no. Every time they spent thousands on her. People are opening the folders now. Reading. I watch their faces change. Horror, anger, disbelief. Mom rushes forward. Claire, you're misunderstanding. I'm not misunderstanding anything. My voice goes hard. You stole from me, both of you. You took money my grandmother left for my education and you spent it on luxury treatments while I worked myself into a hospital bed. Dad tries to grab the microphone. I step back. Don't touch me. Uncle James moves between us. Robert, what the fuck is she talking about? It's not we can explain. Then explain. Aunt Diane's voice cracks. Explain how you spent $70,000 on spa days while your daughter worked 3 jobs. We supported Claire. Mom's voice rises. She had scholarships. She was fine. I had $71,000 in student loans, I shout. I collapsed from exhaustion. I asked you for $200 for moving expenses 3 days after graduation and you said you were stretched thin. I pull up my phone. Read the text message out loud. We're stretched thin right now. You're resourceful. You'll figure it out. That was Dad. May 30th. 3 days after you spent $890 on Brooke's graduation glow package. Someone in the crowd says, "Oh my God." Dad's face is purple. You have no right. I have every right. My voice echoes through the pavilion. This is my life. My money. My trust fund that you stole from. We didn't steal anything. Mom's crying now. We had legal access. For my benefit, I scream. My education and living expenses. Not Brooke's facials. The crowd is murmuring. Angry sounds. Brooke tries to leave. Cousin Marcus blocks her path. Nuh-uh, stay. She turns back. Trapped. You want to know the worst part? I look around at everyone. When I asked my father to lend me $5,000 for surgery last year, Aunt Diane's voice shakes. He told me they didn't have it. That month, they spent $2,900 at that spa. She walks up to Dad. Slaps him. The sound cracks through the pavilion. You told me you couldn't help your sister, she says. While spending thousands on massages. Uncle James grabs his phone. I lent you $10,000 3 years ago. For medical bills, you said. He's scrolling through the evidence packet. This spreadsheet shows you were already spending thousands monthly on the spa. Were those medical bills real, Robert? Dad says nothing. Were they real? We needed the money for what? Uncle James roars. For more fucking spa treatments? The crowd is erupting now. People shouting questions. Demanding answers. I stand at the center, microphone still in hand. Watching my parents' world collapse. Mom grabs for my arm. Claire, please, we can talk about this privately. No. I pull away. You had 30 days to talk privately. My lawyer sent a demand letter. You ignored it. You sent a lawyer after us? Dad's voice cracks. You stole $70,000 from me, I scream. What did you expect? We're your parents. You're thieves. The word hangs in the air. Thieves. Mom collapses into a chair, sobbing. Dad stands frozen, face red, fists clenched. Brooke is crying. I didn't know. I didn't know it was Claire's money. Yes, you did, I say quietly. Every post thanking Mom and Dad for supporting you. Every spa photo. You knew I was struggling. You didn't care. She has no response. I turn back to the crowd. My grandmother left that trust fund so I could focus on my education, so I wouldn't have to work myself to death. My parents took that money and gave my sister a life of luxury instead. I look at each face in the crowd. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking you to witness what happened, to see the truth they've been hiding. Silence. Then Aunt Diane speaks. I believe you. Uncle James nods. I believe you too. One by one, family members speak up. Cousins, friends, even some of my parents' church group. This is disgusting. How could you do this? Your own daughter. Dad tries to speak. If you would all just listen. No! Aunt Diane cuts him off. We've listened to you for years. Every excuse about money being tight. Every time you borrowed from family and never paid it back. We believed you, and you were lying the whole time. She turns to me. Claire, do you have a lawyer? Yes. Good. Sue them. Take everything. The crowd murmurs agreement. Mom looks up, mascara streaking her face. Claire, please, we're your family. I stare at her. At the woman who chose spa days over my graduation. Who spent my inheritance on my sister. Who watched me suffer and did nothing. No, I say quietly. You're not. I put down the microphone. Walk away. Priya follows. Aunt Diane too. Behind us, chaos erupts. Shouting, crying, accusations. I don't look back. I walk to my car in the parking lot. Hands shaking. Heart pounding. Alive in a way I haven't felt in years. Priya reaches me first, pulls me into a hug. You did it, she whispers. Holy shit, you did it. I did. I told the truth, and the truth destroyed them. By 3 p.m., the video was online. Not from me, from someone's cousin whose name I didn't know and face I'd never seen. They'd filmed my entire speech from the side angle and posted it to TikTok with the caption, Girl exposes parents who stole $67K from her trust fund for sister's spa days. Priya showed me at 4 p.m. The video had 40,000 views. By 6 p.m., 340,000. By midnight, 2.3 million. The comment section was nuclear. This is the most documented dragging I've ever seen. She brought receipts, physical receipts, to a family barbecue. The way the aunt slapped him iconic. Harvard grad worked 3 jobs while they funded spa days? Jail. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Some supportive, some angry at me for airing family business publicly. Cousin Rachel. Claire, this was cruel. You humiliated them in front of everyone. Me. They stole $67,000 from me. I showed people the bank statements. That's not humiliation. That's consequences. She didn't respond. Uncle James called at 9 p.m. Claire, I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow. I want to add my case to yours. The $10,000 they borrowed, I have proof they lied about what it was for. You should talk to my attorney. Already emailed her. This ends now. Aunt Diane texted at 11 p.m. Your mother tried calling me 6 times, blocked her. I'm with you, kid, whatever you need. The family was fracturing, splitting along fault lines I'd exposed but didn't create. By morning, the video had been picked up by news outlets, local stations, then national. Harvard graduate exposes parents' financial exploitation at family reunion. My phone rang constantly, media requests, interview offers, people wanting my story. I ignored most of them, but I did call Attorney Rodriguez. Have you seen it? I asked. Everyone's seen it. She sounded pleased. My office has been flooded with calls. Your parents tried to hire 3 law firms today. All of them declined. Why? Because the evidence is public now. No attorney wants to defend documented financial exploitation on camera. They'd lose in court, and in the court of public opinion. What happens next? They have 2 choices: settle quietly or face a very public lawsuit they'll lose. My guess? They'll try to settle. She was right. The settlement offer came 8 days after the reunion. Not from my parents directly, from their attorney, a solo practitioner from 2 towns over who specialized in real estate law and clearly didn't want this case. The letter was clinical. Cold, Settlement proposal. My parents offered $10,000 and a written apology in exchange for my agreement not to pursue further legal action and to request removal of the viral video. I read it twice, laughed, called Attorney Rodriguez. They offered $10,000, I said. I saw, it's insulting. What do I do? Reject it. We file a civil lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We sue for the full $72,000 in misappropriated trust funds, plus $85,000 in compensatory damages for the emotional harm and the student loans you wouldn't have needed if they'd used your trust properly. I did the math. $157,000 total. Will we win? Claire, you have video evidence of you presenting bank statements to 150 witnesses. You have medical records from your hospitalization. You have 18 months of documented denials cross-referenced with spa transactions. Yes. We'll win. File it. She did. Within a week, we'd filed a civil complaint in county court. The case was public record immediately. Claire Hastings versus Robert and Linda Hastings. Breach of fiduciary duty and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The local newspaper picked it up. Then regional news. Then it went viral again. Harvard grad sues parents for $157K after they spent her trust fund on sister's spa treatments. The comment sections everywhere were unanimous. She's going to win. I hope she takes everything. The audacity to offer $10K after stealing $72K. My parents tried to fight it at first. Hired a better attorney, filed a motion to dismiss, claimed I had no standing because they'd had legal access to the trust. The judge denied the motion in a written opinion that Attorney Rodriguez read to me over the phone. The court finds that while defendants had legal access to the trust, they had a fiduciary duty to use those funds for the beneficiary's education and living expenses. The evidence suggests funds were systematically diverted to benefit another party. Plaintiff has demonstrated sufficient standing to proceed. Translation. The judge believed me. Discovery began. Both sides submitted evidence. My documentation, bank statements, medical records, text messages, the viral video. Their claims that they'd supported me in other ways and that I was overreacting to normal family financial decisions. Their evidence was weak. Mostly character references from friends who hadn't seen the bank statements. Mine was a paper trail that could sink a battleship. In October, 5 months after graduation, we went to mediation. Court ordered a neutral mediator, a retired judge, reviewing both cases and pushing for settlement. I sat across from my parents for the first time since the reunion. Mom looked smaller, thinner, hair graying at the roots. Dad looked angry. Wouldn't make eye contact. The mediator laid out the facts. Miss Hastings has compelling evidence of financial mismanagement. Bank records show $67,840 spent on services for her sister while Miss Hastings requested and was denied relatively small amounts for educational expenses. Medical records confirm hospitalization for exhaustion during the period in question. The viral video shows public acknowledgement of these facts by family witnesses. He looked at my parents. If this goes to trial, you'll lose. The judgment will likely exceed the current demand, plus legal fees, plus the continued public scrutiny. Dad's attorney whispered something to him. Dad's jaw clenched. What are you asking for? He finally said to me. The full $72,000 in trust funds you took, plus $85,000 in compensatory damages. Total, $157,000. That's everything we have, Mom whispered. You spent everything I had, I said flatly. On spa treatments. Silence. The mediator cleared his throat. I recommend settlement at $150,000 paid over 4 years, plus a written apology and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Additionally, a restraining order preventing contact for 2 years unless initiated by Miss Hastings. Attorney Rodriguez nodded at me. I considered. $150,000. Payment plan. Written apology. No contact. Everything I'd asked for in the original demand letter, multiplied by 10. I want the apology public, I said. Posted to their social media accounts. The same places where they posted about family and celebrating Brooke. Dad looked like he might explode. The mediator looked at their attorney. After 10 minutes of hushed conversation, they agreed. We settled. Settlement terms: $150,000 paid at $3,125 monthly for 48 months. Written public apology, acknowledging misuse of trust funds and harm caused. 2-year no-contact order. Agreement to cover my legal fees, $12,000. I signed the paperwork. They signed. It was done. 3 days later, the apology appeared on their Facebook accounts. Identical posts, clearly written by their attorney. We publicly acknowledge that we misused funds from Claire Hastings' trust account between January 2023 and June 2024. These funds were intended for Claire's educational expenses and were instead used inappropriately. We caused Claire significant emotional and financial harm during this period. We apologize for our actions and accept full responsibility for the pain we caused our daughter. The post had 4,200 comments within an hour. Most weren't kind. Mom's Garden Club asked her to resign as president. She did. Dad's law firm encouraged him to retire early. He did, at 56. Brooke deleted all her social media accounts, moved to Arizona within a month. The family split exactly as I'd predicted. Team Claire, Aunt Diane, Uncle James, 6 cousins, Dad's brother Thomas, 14 extended family members, and several family friends who'd witnessed the reunion confrontation. Team parents. Brooke, obviously, Mom's sister Karen, who'd always enabled her behavior, and 2 elderly aunts who believed family matters should stay private. Switzerland. Dad's parents, my grandparents, who were heartbroken by the whole situation but refused to choose sides. 8 extended family members who didn't want to get involved. The Switzerland group hurt the most. My grandfather called once. "Claire, I believe you, but they're my son. I can't abandon them." "I understand," I said. I did understand. It still hurt. Holidays became complicated. Aunt Diane hosted Thanksgiving that year. 32 people attended Team Claire, plus some Switzerland members who chose me for that day. My parents ate alone with Brooke and Aunt Karen. Christmas was the same. I spent it with Priya's family. They'd fully adopted me by then. Priya's mother introduced me as my other daughter, and meant it. The first settlement payment arrived in January. $3,125 deposited into my account on the 15th. I stared at it for a long time. Then I made my first extra payment on my student loans. $3,000 toward the principal. It felt like breathing after being underwater. By spring, I'd paid off $15,000 of my loans. By summer, $30,000. The weight I'd carried for 4 years, the crushing pressure of debt accumulated while my parents stole from me, slowly lifted. Uncle James filed his own lawsuit in March. Sued for the $10,000 they'd borrowed, plus interest and punitive damages for fraud. He won a $22,000 judgment. They had to sell their house. Moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a less expensive town. Dad took a contract attorney position for 1/3 of his previous salary. Mom worked full-time at the nonprofit for the first time in 20 years. Their life contracted. Mine expanded. I started law school in the fall, Harvard Law, full scholarship, the acceptance I'd deferred from graduation year. Moved into a better apartment, 1 bedroom, actual furniture, plants that stayed alive. Started therapy weekly, processing everything. The betrayal, the theft, the years of feeling like I was never enough. "You were always enough," my therapist said in session 6. They weren't. It took me months to believe that. But slowly, I did. It's been 3 years since that graduation day in Harvard Yard. 3 years since I placed those programs on empty chairs. since I discovered the bank statements, since I stood in front of 150 people and told the truth. I'm 25 now. The age when grandma's trust would have become mine outright if my parents hadn't already spent it. Instead, I have something better. I have freedom. Financial recovery happened faster than I expected. The settlement money, $150,000 over 4 years, came like clockwork. My parents never missed a payment, probably terrified I'd take them back to court if they did. I used it strategically. $71,000 paid off my student loans completely, every cent. I made the final payment in March of my second year of law school and cried in the bank parking lot for 20 minutes. Zero debt. For the first time since I was 18, I owned my life. $30,000 went into an index fund. Long-term investment. Growing slowly. Security I'd never had. $15,000 stayed in savings. Emergency fund. 6 months of expenses. The kind of cushion that lets you sleep at night. The remaining $34,000 covered law school expenses that my scholarship didn't: housing deposits, bar exam prep courses, professional clothes, the laptop I needed that actually worked. I also kept the $34,000 that strangers had donated to my GoFundMe after the reunion video went viral. People I'd never met sending $10, $50, $100 with messages like, "You deserved better," and "Keep fighting." I used half for therapy. Weekly sessions for 18 months, processing trauma I hadn't known I was carrying. The other half I donated to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students working multiple jobs to survive. Named it after my grandmother. She would have liked that. Career success followed. Harvard Law School accepted me with open arms and a full scholarship package worth $95,000 per year, plus a living stipend. Summer after first year, I interned at attorney Rodriguez's firm. She paid me $8,000 a month and treated me like a colleague, not a victim. Second year, I published an article in the Harvard Law Review about financial exploitation within families and the legal frameworks that fail to protect adult children from parental theft. It was downloaded 47,000 times. 3 law schools invited me to speak. I said yes to all of them. Third year now, I'm working as a student attorney at Harvard's Legal Aid Bureau, representing clients in family law disputes. People like me. People whose families took from them. I help them fight back. I'm good at it. After graduation this spring, I have a job offer from a nonprofit legal organization specializing in financial abuse cases. The salary is modest, $68,000, but the work matters. And I don't need much anymore. No debt, savings, investments. I'm richer now than my parents ever were, and I did it without stealing from anyone. Relationships rebuilt in unexpected ways. Aunt Diane became my family in a way my parents never were. We have dinner every Sunday when I'm in town. She asks about law school. I ask about her work. We laugh about things that aren't related to trauma. She's my emergency contact, my reference for job applications, the person I call when I get good news. Uncle James paid for my law school graduation gift early, a tailored suit for job interviews that cost more than anything I'd ever owned. "You deserve to walk into that courtroom looking like you own it," he said. I cried. My cousins, the 6 who sided with me, became actual friends. We have a group chat. We meet up for holidays. They treat me like I matter. Priya remains my best friend, my roommate for 2 years of law school, and the person I trust most in the world. Her family still claims me as their own. Last Thanksgiving, Priya's mother introduced me to her friends as my daughter Claire, without the qualifier other. I'm listed in her phone as Beta-2. I belong somewhere now. And then there's Marcus. I met him at law school orientation 3 years ago. Quiet guy, kind eyes. Sat next to me during the welcome session and whispered, "Is it normal to feel like an imposter here?" "Yes," I whispered back. "Extremely normal." We got coffee after. He told me about his family, supportive, loving, present. Every milestone, they showed up. I told him about mine. He didn't run. 6 months later, we were dating. A year later, he met Aunt Diane and Priya and passed their vetting with flying colors. 2 years later, he was standing next to me when I made my final student loan payment, holding my hand while I cried. Now, 3 years later, he's talking about the future in ways that include both of us. Marriage, kids someday, a life built on honesty instead of lies. He respects my boundaries with my parents, complete no contact unless I decide otherwise. He never pushes, just stands beside me. I think Grandma would have liked him. Current relationship status with my parents? None. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Not since the settlement was finalized. The no contact order expired after 2 years. They didn't reach out. Neither did I. I've heard updates through Aunt Diane. They still live in the apartment. Dad still does contract work. Mom still works full-time. Their marriage is strained couples therapy twice a week, according to Aunt Diane, who heard from someone else. Brooke got married, moved to Arizona, works in real estate, has a daughter now. I'm an aunt. I feel nothing about that. Mom tried to send a card last Christmas. Aunt Diane intercepted it, asked if I wanted it. I said no. Some relationships aren't meant to be repaired. This is one of them. The lesson I learned isn't heartwarming. It's this. You can't make people love you the way you deserve. But you can stop accepting crumbs and calling it a meal. My parents showed me who they were for 22 years. I just kept hoping they'd change. They didn't. They won't. And that's okay now. Because I changed instead. I learned that documentation is power. That silence protects abusers. That speaking truth even when it destroys families is worth it if it frees you. I learned that chosen family is stronger than blood. That debt isn't destiny. That you can survive watching your parents choose someone else every single day and still build a life that matters. To anyone working 3 jobs while watching their sibling coast, your exhaustion is valid. Your anger is valid. Document everything. Every denial, every expense, every time they say we can't afford it while funding someone else's comfort. You're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're being stolen from. And you deserve better. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Mine ends with me thriving without the people who hurt me. I'm graduating from Harvard Law School this spring. Aunt Diane will sit in chair 12. Priya in chair 13. Uncle James and his family beside them. Marcus in the row behind, already planning the celebration dinner. My chosen family filling every seat. The chairs won't be empty this time. And my parents, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, won't be there to see it. They spent $67,840 on spa days. I spent 3 years building a life where their absence doesn't define me. I'm not the girl who saved them seats anymore. I'm the woman who saved herself. And this time, every seat is filled. 3 years later, I stood in Harvard Yard again. Different ceremony, same crimson gown. Law school graduation. The weather was perfect May sunshine, blue sky, the kind of day that feels designed for celebrating. I looked out at the audience from the staging area. Front row, chairs 12 and 13, Aunt Diane and Priya, already crying. Beside them, Uncle James, Cousin Rachel, who apologized a year ago, Marcus. Second row, Priya's parents, 3 more cousins, Attorney Rodriguez, who took the day off to attend. Third row, friends from law school, classmates who'd become family. Every seat I could see was filled with people who chose to be there, who celebrated my achievements instead of minimizing them, who showed up. My name was called. Claire Jennifer Hastings, Juris Doctor, cum laude. I walked across that stage, accepted my diploma, moved my tassel. And this time, when I looked out at the audience, I saw faces I loved looking back. Cheering, crying, proud. The empty chairs from 3 years ago felt like a different lifetime. A life I'd survived and left behind. After the ceremony, Aunt Diane pulled me into a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she whispered. I thought about Grandma. about the trust fund she'd left to secure my future, about how my parents had stolen it, and how I'd fought to reclaim not just the money, but my own worth. "I think she'd be proud I fought back," I said. Aunt Diane smiled. "I know she would." We took photos, hundreds of them. Me with Aunt Diane, with Priya, with Marcus, with my chosen family who'd filled every empty space my parents had left. Someone asked, "Are your parents coming later?" "No," I said simply. "They're not." No explanation needed. No apology for their absence. Just fact. We went to dinner 23 people at an Italian restaurant, laughing and talking and celebrating. I sat at the head of the table, surrounded by people who'd chosen me. And I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at my parents. Not at Brooke. Not at the years I'd lost working myself to exhaustion. I was just free. Free from the need for their approval. Free from the belief that I had to earn love through achievement. Free from the empty chairs and the hoping and the endless disappointment. I'd built a life they had no part in. And it was better than anything they could have given me. This is Achiever Betrayed, where we tell the stories of those who worked for everything they had, only to have the people who should have supported them take instead of give. My story isn't unique. Financial exploitation by family members happens more often than we talk about. Parents who steal from their children's college funds, siblings who take without asking, relatives who borrow and never repay. It happens in silence because victims are taught that family loyalty means accepting abuse. But I'm here to say, document everything. Speak up. Fight back. You don't owe loyalty to people who steal from you, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. 3 years ago, I stood in Harvard Yard with 2 empty chairs in front of me, holding programs for parents who chose a spa day over my graduation. Today, I stood in the same place with every chair filled by people who chose me. That's not a fairy tale ending. That's justice. And sometimes, justice is the best revenge. Thank you for following my story. To everyone out there fighting similar battles, I see you. I believe you. And I promise it gets better when you stop protecting the people who hurt you and start protecting yourself. This is Achiever Betrayed, reminding you that your achievements matter, your boundaries matter, and you deserve people who show up. Not just with words, with actions, every single time.